guys, it's Kendra from Crafty Kendra, and today I'm going to show you how to make this card. So let's go ahead and get started. What I have here is a piece of Whisper White cardstock, and it's cut at 3 3/4 inches wide. And I have it longer than what I need because I'm going to make lots of these cards, so I'm going to go ahead and do this step so that I can make a lot of cards. Out of this piece, I can get 3 slivers. And what I've done is I've taken my Daffodil Delight ink and my Versamark and my word stamp from the Strength and Hope stamp set. I'm going to ink it up in the Versamark, ink it up in Daffodil Delight. Then what I'm going to do is bring in my Stampin' Up jig and my vellum sheet. And I'm going to line it up so I get the lines straight. You can eyeball it if you want, but I've been lining it up. Move the vellum out of the way. Stamp straight down. Do the same thing. And then so long as you don't move your vellum a lot, you can stamp about 3 times and then you can put the embossing powder on. Okay, so now I have the bottom portion finished on this piece. What I'm going to do is bring in my powder pal tray with my clear embossing powder. I'm going to cover what's left of my piece. Flip it over and tap. I'm going to bring in my cutting board that I use with my heat tool. Sit down on my piece and then bring in my heat tool. And heat it up. Just like that, it's done. Go ahead and fan it a little to help it cool off a little faster. Alright, it's cool. Now what we're going to do is bring in our brayer and our Tinting Turquoise ink pad. What we're going to do is ink up a brayer. Roll lift is how you ink your brayer. I'm going to get it nice and covered. Then we're going to bring in our piece that we embossed. And we're going to start off the page and end off the page. You're going to want to roll lift on here too. Ink up your brayer again. Start from the opposite side. Then you're going to turn your paper and go the other way. Okay. The reason this works is because the embossing resists. And what you're going to do next is bring in your sponge dauber and just rub over it. And what this will do is it'll pick up whatever ink is sitting on top of your words. I've gone ahead and cut that blue piece down to be 3 3/4 inch by 1.5 inches. I'm going to set it aside. The next thing we're going to do is bring in a piece of Whisper White. This piece measures 1.5 inches by 3 3/4 inch. what we're going to do is take our Daffodil Delight ink pad and a sponge dauber. We're just going to put a few spots of Daffodil Delight in there. Then we're going to move on to Certainly Celery. And we're going to do the same thing. The last color we're going to use is going to be Pacific Point. Alright, after we've done all those colors, we're going to bring back in our Daffodil Delight and our sponge dauber. We're just going to go over all the place that we've sponged to kind of help blend the colors together a little bit more. Just like that. If you feel you need to touch up some colors, like I'm going to darken up some of this green. Now what we're going to do is bring in the butterfly stamp from the Strength and Hope stamp set. We're going to ink it up in our verse and mark. Then what we're going to do is take and rub our embossing buddy across this piece. I'm going to take and stamp the butterfly over what we colored. Then bringing in my powder pal tray and my clear embossing powder. Just gonna pour right over that. Alright, now after I've gotten it all nice and covered, I'm going to bring in my cutting board, and then I'm going to use my heat tool, and I'm going to melt that butterfly. As you can see, even now, it just really makes those colors pop and even brighter than what's underneath. Now what we're going to do is bringing in our early espresso. I'm going to go ahead and use the brayer again, which I've already cleaned off, to go over top this. And you're going to want to make sure that it's cool. Before you start, ink up your brayer by roll, lift, roll, lift, roll, lift. Just gonna go across it. All right. We're going to go in both directions. And don't be surprised if you can still see a little bit of the color underneath by around the butterfly. Since we did put a different ink underneath, it isn't going to cover it perfectly, but unless you're looking really close, you won't be able to notice. Then what we're going to do is we're going to use our sponge dauber to clean it up. And help pick up any of the ink that isn't soaking in. Alright, so then we get that, and it really makes that butterfly stand out. I'm going to go ahead and set it aside. Here I have a piece of Daffodil Delight that measures 3 3/4 inch by 1 1/2. Just going to run our embossing buddy over it. Then we're going to get out the ... stamp. What we're going to do is we're going to ink up the stamp first with our Versamark. And then we're going to tap it into our early espresso and placing it onto our piece of paper. We're just going to stamp it down. You'll notice I stamped it at a diagonal, and that's just because on the small of a piece of paper I find it easier to line it up when it's going at a diagonal. Then I went ahead and I just cleaned off my stamp. I'm going to go ahead and ink it up again in Versamark. I'm going to tap back into the early espresso. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to line up my stamp, stamp down. You'll see how I have one line that's messed up, but that's okay because that's what I want. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to take in that spot, tie some 1/8 inch taffeta ribbon, and certainly celery. And I wrapped it around that spot, flat, wrapped it around the back, and all I'm going to do is tie a little knot. There you go. Can't even tell that that was there. Just going to trim off the ends and set it aside. And that certainly celery ribbon is retired. They have the same size ribbon in different colors, but no longer have it in certainly celery. The next thing we're going to do is bring in our card base. Our card base is certainly celery, and it measures 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inches. First thing we're going to do is taking some Stampin' Dimensionals. We're going to attach Stampin' Dimensionals to the back of our Daffodil Delight piece. And also to the back of our Tempting Turquoise brayered piece. Alright, now that I've taken off all the backing, we're going to start with our bottom piece, which is going to be the Tempting Turquoise one. We're just going to line it up where we want it and press it down. Then using our Daffodil Delight, we're going to do the same thing at the top. Press it down. Now with our piece that has a butterfly on it, we're actually not going to use dimensionals, we're going to use snail. Just going to run snail on it. We're going to center it in between the two panels that we already put on. Just like that. And that finishes off our card. On the inside of the card, I simply have a piece of Whisper White paper, and it measures 4 1/4 by, it measures 4 inches by 5 1/4. And that's all. I hope you guys enjoyed the card, and